Ottawa is breaking this country, and 50% of Westerners are saying maybe it's time we let them. Now, why is this happening? Well, because Ottawa and the Liberals just refuse to listen, because they don't see the West as a partner. They see us as a piggy bank. We supply the resources, we pay the bills, and then they punish us for it. And let's talk about how this could backfire fast.
Western provinces just recently announced the shocking WEXIT update. And believe me, that is the kind of drama Ottawa never saw coming. Alberta and Saskatchewan aren't whispering about leaving anymore. They're basically yelling it across the prairies with petitions and polls to back it up.
And it's not just Alberta, it's not just Sask. Parts of BC are expressing interest, along with Manitoba. So this is what's known as WEXIT, literally a Western exit from the Confederation.
Ottawa's flat-out rejection of even sitting down to hear Western concerns was the spark that turned years of frustration into a wildfire. No polite sorry, no political soft talk, just a blunt no. For decades, the Reform Party tried to play the game with their slogan, "The West wants in," but now the mood has flipped. WEXIT's rallying cry is "The West wants out," and it's not just a handful of people muttering in frustration anymore.
Indigenous leaders in Manitoba gathered on Friday.
From Alberta rallies to Saskatchewan town halls, the word independence isn't taboo. It's becoming the main topic of conversation. This isn't barroom grumbling or social media noise anymore. Real petitions are being filed, referendum questions are already drafted, and the courts are deciding if those questions can go on a ballot. The talk has crossed over into action.
One that Ottawa and the Liberals built with their own arrogance.
Nowhere is that clearer than in Alberta. The Alberta Prosperity Project has taken the biggest step yet by filing an official application with Elections Alberta. They've got their referendum question word for word. Do you agree Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province in Canada? It doesn't get more direct than that. The legal system is reviewing whether that question can stand, but on the ground, the energy is real.
It really does look as if Canada is about to change forever.
To even get this on the ballot, they need 177,000 valid signatures within 4 months. That sounds like a mountain. But organizers say they've already secured over 240,000 pledges. If those pledges turn into signatures, the threshold won't just be met, it'll be crushed. Premier Danielle Smith isn't hiding the frustration either. On her desk sits the Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act, a piece of legislation many see as Alberta's political weapon. It's a message that Alberta is no longer playing nice. No longer content with waiting on Ottawa's goodwill. It's the provincial equivalent of keeping a loaded gun on the table, just to remind everyone it's there.
Province to better protect Alberta from any current or future hostile policies of the federal government.
And the anger isn't just about political respect, it's about money. Every year, Alberta bleeds an estimated $17 billion in lost revenue thanks to blocked pipelines, carbon taxes, and endless federal red tape. Projects that could bring billions into the economy are delayed or vetoed, while Ottawa still expects Alberta to keep paying into equalization. To many Albertans, it feels like Ottawa is cutting off their ability to earn a living while still demanding a hefty paycheck. That $17 billion loss isn't a rounding error. It's the kind of money that decides whether communities thrive or collapse, whether industries grow or suffocate.
Instead, we get Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines law, still on the books and will remain on the books, according to Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Saskatchewan is no longer sitting quietly while Alberta takes the hits. Premier Scott Moe has openly backed the idea of building a regional coalition with Alberta to study sovereignty options. This isn't just talk at a press conference, it's a clear political alignment, with Moe putting his province shoulder to shoulder with Danielle Smith's Alberta. Saskatchewan is now positioning itself as more than just a sympathetic neighbor. It's a co-pilot in the sovereignty discussion.
Peripheral issue. No more. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC power brokers have unveiled concrete roadmaps. So we're talking, again, provisional governments.
And the numbers prove it isn't just political theater. Polling from Ledger and Angus Reid has shown that over 40% of Saskatchewan residents would vote to leave Canada if a referendum were held today. That's nearly half the province, far from a fringe minority. For a region that has historically been quieter than Alberta on national debates, these figures mark a dramatic shift. What used to be the silent prairie province is now revealing itself as a potential powerhouse in the separatist wave.
Canada. Bill 54 makes it 70% easier to trigger separation referendums by slashing signature requirements from 600,000 to just over 170,000.
The anger in Saskatchewan mirrors Alberta's but comes with its own list of grievances. The potash industry, one of Saskatchewan's economic lifelines, has been tangled in layers of regulation and taxation that stifle growth. Farmers, too, are squeezed under Ottawa's carbon taxes and agricultural controls. Policies that treat them less like independent producers and more like tenants farming on behalf of bureaucrats 3,000 kilometers away.
This was two Western provinces coming together to formalize their mutual intention in officially declaring independence from Ottawa's economic colonialism.
The province's energy sector is caught in the same web of red tape as Alberta's oil industry, blocked from reaching its full potential because of federal restrictions. The narrative in Saskatchewan is simple. Whether it's potash, agriculture, or energy, Ottawa is standing in the way of industries that keep not only Saskatchewan alive, but much of the Canadian economy as well. This frustration isn't staying behind closed doors. Across Saskatchewan, rallies are now mirroring Alberta's playbook. Town halls and community gatherings are no longer about local infrastructure or municipal budgets. They're about independent strategies, sovereignty options, and building momentum for a political rupture.
Pipeline cancellations, tightening of regulations, tax grabs from Ottawa. They've hammered their economy.
In smaller prairie towns, halls are filling with people demanding answers about Ottawa's treatment of the West. What began as grassroots conversations has transformed into a structured separatist strategy, one that looks less like emotional outbursts and more like a political campaign in waiting.
Manitoba, they've all started coordinating trade, energy, infrastructure, and labor mobility without federal intermediaries.
But Saskatchewan isn't the only province leaning into this conversation. Across the Rockies, the quiet grumbling in British Columbia's interior and northern regions has started to turn into open questioning of loyalty to Ottawa. This isn't Vancouver latte politics. It's the voices of communities economically tied to Alberta's oil, gas, and forestry industries. For these regions, federal policy isn't some abstract law. It's the difference between a sawmill staying open or shuttering, between a drilling project breaking ground or being strangled in red tape.
Manitoba would be geographically cut off from eastern Canada. BC would face massive economic pressure to join the Western Bloc or risk isolation.
Local leaders in these parts of BC have gone on record blasting Ottawa's environmental restrictions, calling them nothing more than gift-wrapping services designed to delay and suffocate resource projects. Forestry proposals, mining expansions, and oil development aren't just slowed, they're tied up until investors pull out altogether. And all of this while Ottawa continues funneling billions into Quebec to handle unrelated issues like the $750 million package for asylum management announced just this year. For BC's interior, it's proof of where Ottawa's priorities lie, and it isn't west of the Rockies.
Brexit involving the inevitable separation of the Western provinces.
Meanwhile, Manitoba plays a quieter but no less important role. Its premier hasn't draped himself in separatist slogans, but he hasn't dismissed Western grievances either. Politically, that acknowledgement matters. In the coded language of Canadian politics, recognizing Western alienation is a public way of saying Ottawa has failed to balance Confederation, and strategists within the independence movement see Manitoba not for its slogans, but for its geography. Sitting squarely in the middle of the prairies, Manitoba is the logistical linchpin between Alberta and Saskatchewan's resource wealth and the ports, railways, and trade corridors needed to reach North American and global markets.
We're going to make Alberta great again, and that is when we cut ourselves off from the leech that is Eastern Canada.
Alberta independence is the only solution at this point. Alberta getting the hell out of Canada is the way to go.
If Alberta is the driver and Saskatchewan is the passenger, Manitoba is the critical bridge that links the entire vehicle to the outside world. Sovereignists see this not just as symbolic, but as the foundation for a potential Western economic bloc, a grouping of provinces whose combined industries and logistics could rival Ottawa's central Canadian grip. It's not just about separating politically, it's about building a new trade and economic framework that gives the West power without needing Ottawa's blessing.
Any province hold a successful referendum with a clear majority, Ottawa is legally required to negotiate a separation.
When you connect the dots, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Alberta is pushing the referendum machinery forward. Saskatchewan is throwing its weight behind the idea, with 40% of its population ready to walk away. BC's interior is beginning to voice its own separatist leanings, driven by industries suffocated under federal policy. And Manitoba, while less vocal, sits at the strategic crossroads that could make or break any Western Bloc's economic future.
Serious challenge to Canadian unity in a generation. Ottawa may indeed be losing the West for good.
For decades, Alberta and Saskatchewan have poured money into Ottawa's coffers, hundreds of billions of dollars more than they've ever seen returned. The mechanism has always been equalization, and to the West, it's become shorthand for exploitation. Equalization is supposed to balance prosperity across provinces, but in practice, it has turned Alberta and Saskatchewan into permanent donors.
This agreement will see our three provinces advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy, potash, critical minerals and agricultural products to markets across Canada and across the world. And when it comes to advancing these goals, it's undeniable that there is strength in numbers.
The resentment is sharpened every time provincial budgets are squeezed while Ottawa continues sending massive transfers eastward. In the words often repeated at rallies and town halls, Ottawa is the friend who eats your lunch and then criticizes your cooking. For many Albertans, the issue isn't about national unity or cultural identity anymore. It's financial survival. When you contribute endlessly, lose billions in blocked resource revenue, and still get scolded as polluters, separation begins to look less like a dream and more like the only viable ledger correction.
This week, the Angus Reid Institute dropped a bombshell poll. 50% of Albertans and Saskatchewanians now say they support holding a referendum on independence.
That frustration is now measurable in numbers that Ottawa can't dismiss. According to the latest Angus Reid Institute polling, 50% of Western Canadians support holding a referendum on independence. That figure is stunning on its own, but it's when you break it down by province that the alarm bells really start ringing. In Alberta, 36% of residents say they would vote to leave Canada if the question were put on a ballot today. In Saskatchewan, 34% say the same. These aren't hypothetical musings. They represent millions of people willing to check the box for exit right now, regardless of the risks. For Albertans and Saskatchewanians, the math is simple. They contribute far more than they get. Their industries are throttled by laws designed in Eastern boardrooms, and the only proposals that would calm separatist anger are flatly rejected by the federal government.